And now this, as Chennai grapples with its worst crisis in over 45 years, the national capital, New Delhi, is choking. Delhi's air is so polluted that the WHO in its latest report that is going to come out in February 2016 will say that the air quality in Delhi would be categorized as a public health emergency if it was any other country. Let me just put this in perspective for all of you. Beijing, the capital of China, is one of the worst polluted cities in the world. But the worst polluted place in Beijing is still cleaner than the least polluted place in Delhi. If you still don't get the picture, we will show you a story that we did today. And joining us tonight will be R.P. Singh, National Secretary of the BJP. Vimlendu Jha, he's an environmentalist. He is also on the panel tonight. Brajesh Kalappa, National Spokesperson of the Congress Party. And completing my panel will be Saurabh Bharadwaj, MLA and spokesperson of the Aam Aadmi Party. Now that I have my guest with me right now, I would like to show the viewers this story that we did, which will put all that I'm saying right now in perspective. When we come back, we'll ask our panelists, how does Delhi get out of this one? Take a look at this.
It's shameful and horrifying. National capital Delhi has been shamed as the most polluted city on the planet. With Delhi's air virtually unbreathable and with the centre and state playing the blame game, NewsX caught up with the experts to devise a safe Delhi plan. Experts suggest closing down polluting factory units for a week, barring non-certified trucks entry, immediate report on Haryana-Delhi bypass and major tax breaks by state and centre to promote electric vehicles.
They need to tell the public to start staying indoors on certain days. When I talk about severe pollution, I'm not saying severe for like an ailing person. I mean severe for even a healthy person.
What I would suggest is, yes, by the report itself, if the air quality is bad, I feel people, especially the elderly people and children, should still remain indoors because the particulate matter is much above the permissible levels.
Even as the Delhi government put up their arms, the centre has come up with their own three-point plan to save Delhi, with pollution levels in the capital now 10 times more than those that exist in Beijing.
सरकार अपनी तरफ से जो भी कर सकती है करने की कोशिश कर रही है और ये लोगों को समझना पड़ेगा कि उनकी जिंदगी में जितनी कार का महत्व है उससे ज़्यादा हवा का और सांस लेने का महत्व.
We decided on 3 action course and we are going ahead with it. So bypass, preponement of vehicle, the launching of National Air Quality Index, the non-diverted vehicles, non-destined vehicles to be diverted.
The National Green Tribunal has slammed the Kejriwal government, even as the Met Department has warned it could get worse.
But we need to organize our traffic system immediately if we have to escape pollution.
Identify, make that public that this is the percentage of smoke being contributed by government, whether it's vehicles, whether it's properties, whatever. Let the government take control of its own self.
As Delhi chokes, NewsX asks, are the courts the only course to save Delhi? Is it reasonable for our government to suggest no short-term solution and is making this a voter issue the only way to make our netas care? The report, NewsX.
R.P. Singh, Vimlendu Jha, Brajesh Kalappa and Saurabh Bharadwaj on the panel tonight. Let me go straight across to the AAP spokesperson first. Today, Saurabh, not only did the National Green Tribunal but also the High Court pull up the AAP government, specifically saying the state government needs to do a lot more than it is doing right now. Does the state government have a plan? Forget about cleaning up Delhi, but to at least tackle the rising levels of pollution we've seen, especially this year. Like I mentioned in my intro, Saurabh, the WHO in 2016, February, will come out and say the amount of pollution in cities like Delhi should be declared a public health emergency.
Yes, first and foremost, yes, it's a big concern. Not just for government, I think for every citizen it's a big concern. And you know, when the matters come up in the courts, these matters are going on in the courts for many years. So it's not basically the AAP government, it's the Delhi government which is party to such, such court cases. And yes, Delhi government is answerable, accountable to a lot of things. including pollution, and Delhi government has started a lot of initiatives. Like you have seen car free day, we have already had 2 car free days. We are working on, enhancing the public transport. This is what we have always said, that last mile connectivity is very important. We have collaborated with University of Chicago and we are trying to crowdsource ideas, and Delhi government has said that we'll fund those ideas up to the limit of 2 crore rupees. Government will fund any such idea which can help us to curb pollution. But yes, I think the role of television channels, media is also very important, because you people help us or help people making an opinion, and once the public opinion is there,
But
and
Saurav,
it
if
is
I may,
of
with all due
importance,
respect,
even political parties
with all due
do
respect,
their
Saurav,
calculations, and they feel that they have to work on it for
Saurav,
sure.
with all due respect, if I may intervene, are you suggesting that only traffic and the increase in vehicles in Delhi is responsible for the alarming a spike in pollution levels? Because the figures and the facts and the statistics and all the reports do not point that way. Traffic and increased vehicular traffic is only one part of why Delhi is seeing increased levels, perhaps even all-time high levels of smog, of dust particles and all over pollution. And there are other reasons I will list throughout the course of the show. Are you saying by having a car-free day once a month and getting ideas and funding something from the University of Chicago, can you tackle the kind of serious problem that we are leaving not just for future generations but for our generation? Do you think only that can work? Isn't that too narrow? Don't we need a far more holistic plan on paper and implement it?
I have already told you, the plan is that, I think most of the surveys and studies have suggested that vehicular pollution
is only part of it, sir. I'm sorry, sir. I'll read out the main causes of increase in pollution in Delhi, sir. Vehicular traffic, sir, I'm sorry, is only part of it. And I'm sure the environmentalists on the panel will bear me out here before I go to the other politicians. Vimlendu Jha, is vehicular traffic the only cause of increase in alarming levels? Aren't there far more many factors? I will list them if you don't.
See, there are very many issues because of which Delhi is the way it is right now. But I think, one of the main things that we need to highlight right now, that it is not imagined public health emergency. It actually is a public health emergency. And I sometimes feel really angry about the fact that, it's been several days that we've been getting these statistics, and there's hardly any action that we actually find from the local government or from the central government. And I think it's not about whose government, whether it's AAP government or a Congress government or a BJP government that we are talking about. We're actually risking lives of thousands and thousands and millions of people. And it's not, of course, it's not a one-day problem, and it's not just the vehicles that have actually caused this problem. It's the policies that we have been maintaining in this country, and Delhi specifically, that has actually caused this problem. So I sometimes feel that so-called progressive governments of our times, they're really doing nothing. If it's an emergency, it needs emergency action, and there's nothing on the ground that we actually see. We actually
Vimlendu,
have to,
you mentioned Vimlendu,
air purifier.
Vimlendu, you mentioned that what we've seen so far, I'm not being government specific, it could be any government, AAP, BJP, Congress, what have you. What we see is a lot of lip service. I mean, let me just quote to you what the WHO is saying right now. Indian cities are the most toxic air category around the world. 13 Indian cities were among the top 20 most polluted cities in the world, and this has been published not only in the WHO but the Lancet, which is the highly respected
and that's
medical
what
journal.
Why should a Chicago announcement happen after that US Embassy Air Quality Index?
Yes.
The government, the reason why we elect governments is for governments to foresee that. So when it actually happens, when I'm breathing 999 Air Quality Index air, that's when I actually get to hear that, oh well, there is a plan. No. There needs to be something. You need to foresee it. It's not a new fact. 4 months ago, there were stories about how Delhi is one of the most polluted cities in the world. What did we actually do about it?
Okay, Vimlendu Jha has made a very valid point right now. I want to go across to RP Singh and Brijesh Kalappa. Mr. Singh, to you first. Now, Prakash Javadekar, our environment minister today, came out with a 3-point plan that the central government has envisaged. If you just heard what Vimlendu Jha said right now, that is not going to work because it is just a 3-point plan of stopping emissions, of getting out diesel cars, of putting an air quality index. How is that going to help us reduce the kind of alarming levels of proportions of pollution we've seen? We need a far more holistic approach, and that is not going to be enough, Mr. Singh.
See, you are probably missing on one thing which Mr. Javadekar said, that is that we are going to build up eastern and western peripheral roads, which is going to cost something like 12,000 crore rupees,
yes,
to avoid all these commercial vehicles from coming inside, which is one of the reasons for pollution. Okay, so issue is not only that. There are certain steps which need to be taken. I remember court intervened, CNG was introduced by Mr. Sheila Dikshit. Court intervened, more steps were taken. Now there are some proactive steps which need to be taken by the government, Delhi government itself, and where any help they need from the central government, we are prepared to help them out on all those steps. But certain steps have taken. I'll give you one very small example you understand from that. It's not only the vehicular pollution, it's the industrial pollution also. There are unauthorized illegal industries which work in city, and city government has given them go ahead that we will not punish you because of pollution. And the minister itself on the second day after being elected, Mr. Singh Jain said, don't worry, don't bother, you can continue here, we will not bother you, and we won't, because of pollution we won't bother you. Now we have to give a plan where we can shift all these unauthorized illegal polluting industry out of the city, out to the periphery of the city. That's one thing. Secondly,
no, but sir, what you're suggesting is counterproductive.
Who's bothered?
No, Mr. Singh, I'm sorry, sir. What you're suggesting is counterproductive, and I'll tell you why, sir. If you want to keep them,
counterproductive.
If you want to push them to the periphery, sir, it is not going to help the pollution. It is going to increase the pollution because Delhi is a landlocked city, sir. It's not Mumbai where it has a shot with sea breeze coming in and pollution going away. It's a landlocked city, sir. And if the periphery is full of industries and built kilns and what have you, it will only add to the pollution, sir. Okay, Brijesh Kalappa for a bit now. Let me go back to the days, the early 90s, the mid 90s. Hold on.
Shut all those.
Hold on. Mr. Singh, I'll come to you, sir. I'll come to you. Mr. Kalappa, just one quick point. Sheila Dikshit was the one who introduced
all polluting industries altogether.
No, I understand.
I missed one. You allow me to complete one point.
Okay.
No, allow me to complete one point at least. Allow me to complete one more point.
Okay.
That is, that bare minimum which was desired by this government was that they could have allowed their MLAs to plant minimum 10,000 trees in each constituency, or 2,000 trees in each constituency. That was simple, very simple to be done. They missed on that also. I mean, if we could have planted another 1.5 lakh tree, each MLA contributed 2,000 trees, that could have helped a bit in city, but they have not done that also. So they need to sit, not by announcing 2 crore award, they need to sit, call the experts, and like Mr. Jha and others, and talk to them and find out short-term, long-term solutions and immediately start.
Mr. Singh, I just want to quickly go across to Mr. Kalappa.
All right. Their vehicle which moves in city, my vehicle also.
All right.
No one asked me for that.
Mr. Singh, I can't stress enough, it's not just about the vehicles, and I'll list out if I have time. Mr. Kalappa, Sheila Dikshit introduced in the mid-90s, in the late 90s, CNG, which to an extent did reduce pollution, but we are living in a different age now, Mr. Kalappa. Don't you think that the kind of approach needed to tackle pollution at such a high level right now needs to be closer to what, let's say, Beijing does or China does? I mean, I know that's not the best example, but at least they have stricter norms, at least they have alerts. We don't even have the concept of an alert right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I agree with you, Arthur. And it's truly tragic that the kind of work that Sheila Dikshit had done, the kind of work that the Supreme Court and the state government had done at the time of cleaning up the Delhi air, one by introduction of Euro norms, and to see that public transport vehicles were rid totally of diesel and made CNG compulsory. Then after having done that, introduced metro, which took away the pressure of these vehicles. And then the third thing was the kind of greeneriness.
We're not talking about the past, sir. I'm saying that already happened, Mr. Kalappa. We are in a different age right now.
I'm saying that despite these thrusts over the last year and a half, there has been valuable nothing done. So this is the point of tragedy, and the blame must squarely go to both the BJP and to the Aam Aadmi Party. You must remember one thing. One thing is that Delhi being landlocked, You get pollution from all sides. If crops are being burnt in Punjab, then Delhi is going to be affected by it. What is the consequence of not having good relationship with your neighbors, which the Aam Aadmi Party doesn't believe in? You're fighting with Haryana, you're fighting with Punjab. On every occasion, on every issue, there seems to be some kind of a fight.
See,
and
again,
so far as the central government is
politics
concerned,
of our
they have
country,
washed their hands off the whole thing.
Politics
and
of our
only
country
mainly interested in
has
blaming
led
the state
to this now,
government.
Mr. Kalappa.
So this
I
is the
do
whole
agree with you.
problem.
I do agree with you there on one point partially. Mr. Kalappa, I agree with you there partially, but I want to explore this slightly further. I have to take, I'm obliged to take a break right now, but when I come back in under 2 minutes, I want to speak solutions, and I will start with Vimlendu Jha and Saurabh Bharadwaj when we come back. Don't go anywhere, keep watching The Nation at 9. Welcome back to Washington Nation at 9. Delhi is choking, and it's choking bad right now. Let me go across very quickly to Vimlendu Jha. Vimlendu, let's talk solutions. I have 4 minutes left on the show. Do you think the measures that were spelled out by the AAP representative right now and Mr. Javadekar earlier, reiterated by Mr. Singh right now, are they going to be nearly enough? I mean, I don't want to trivialize the matter, but Norway, the Norwegian embassy is considering giving their embassy officials a hardship allowance, and it's going to be a hardship posting for their officials only because the air is so bad.
See, exactly. As in, I think across party lines, there's more of smog politics rather than smog solution as an approach that they have. As in, irrespective of whether it's Congress, BJP or Aam Aadmi Party, there's no solution approach that sometimes we feel, we as citizens more than as experts that we realize. Solutions given by, every time there has to be a court. In the case of CNG, we had a court. Right now there's an NGT or a high court that's actually telling our local government and also central government to really act upon and treat this as emergency. There has to be short-term and long-term solution, but we need to begin. Swachh Delhi or Swachh India is not just an idea. At the end of the day, it needs to transact into reality. Our green cover has to increase. The way we have been actually developing Delhi, the amount of dust that we have inside Delhi, and the periphery, the political boundary of Delhi is not the only boundary. Watershed and airshed of Delhi is not what we need to only bother about. Only not the political boundary. We have to look at what happens in Ghaziabad, Panipat, also has to be really taken into account. And I think that's where governments of all these states, the central government and the state government all together need to understand that it's an emergency time and it needs more than what usually we react. Also, we need to understand that it's not a policy solution. Please understand, it's not just a policy solution that we need. We need solution on the ground. We need to ban vehicles. Other countries have had these issues. Why can we not? So car-free day on a Dashera is not a solution. We need to really look at
we need to do this on a war footing.
Solution.
Absolutely, we need to do this on a war footing because the danger is not forthcoming. It is already here. It is amongst us. We are living it day in and day out. Saurabh Bharadwaj, you said, of course, that you listed some measures that you say you're working on right now. But don't you think, sir, when Satyendra Jain, the Health Minister of Delhi, talks to NewsX and tells us that once the people realize what the dangers are, things will get better. Don't you think that's just ignorance?
Look,
They're
like
not
you
even
saw
aware
it
of
in
what
the
is
panel,
happening in Delhi.
The problem is that, you have to take very harsh measures to tackle pollution, to tackle this situation. But, the kind of political environment we have, it's very
Who's
difficult.
stopping them?
Let me remind you, in the first budget of Delhi, we brought in a tax,
who has created that
especially on the
environment in Delhi?
vehicles, commercial vehicles, which are entering Delhi and which are not destined for Delhi. We could not enforce it. Congress as well as BJP opposed it tooth and nail. And now when the Supreme Court said that you have to have this tax, then it was implemented.
Saurabh,
So,
why
you know,
should
the
the US
political will
embassy tell us
cannot,
what our air looks like?
just happen, because there is so much of
What sort of
opposition and
provision
they
have you
just
made in the
oppose
budget
for
for the
the purpose of
environment in Delhi?
opposing. So
Let
you
the
need
man
a
speak,
lot
sir.
of
What
sort of
maturity from
budget
all
have you- what
political
sort of
parties,
provision have you
ruling
made?
Hold on.
party as well as opposition, to take harsh measures.
Okay, but you're still blaming it on political problems, sir. RP Singh,
What
can the
majority are you
politics of
talking
our
about?
country or
But
different
your MLS
parties
could have
hold
planted
us ransom for the
1,000
air we
trees.
breathe? Really, sir? Can the politics hold us ransom? Because I will not allow as a citizen for political parties to hold the air that I breathe
saying-
as ransom.
So will I also not allow for the same. And I'm telling you, we are prepared to go to any level, to any step to help them out, to save Delhi out of this problem. And this is not problem outside in outskirts. It's a problem within the houses also.
You didn't
now.
even participate
Pollution
in
is
the car
affecting
free
the-
days. None of your leaders participated in the
houses
car
also.
free
So
days.
they
What level will you go to
immediate-
help us out? You don't even participate.
I'm sorry, car free day will not help you. Shall I tell you, Mr. Kejriwal used to speak of the metro train. Today, every MLA...
Swachh Bharat will help. Swachh Bharat will help. When we are ready to participate in your programs, can't you participate? Are you so arrogant?
Don't get into this tutu meme. Sir, this shows that you are not serious. You are more into tutu meme. There's a problem with the AAP party. You are into more into tutu meme than giving a solution to the problem. And solution is, the minimum is ask your MLS to
shows your arrogance. It shows your arrogance.
Minimum 1,35,000
Your
people
leaders
have
don't
planted
even
in the last 9
participate in
months.
such
Ma'am,
events.
Ma'am, can you show me one tree which you have planted?
Okay, gentlemen, unfortunately I'm out
Sir,
of time
please,
right now.
what are you talking about?
Unfortunately, I'm out of time right now, Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh, unfortunately,
what have you done in last
Mr.
9
Singh,
months?
unfortunately, I'm out of time right now. Brajesh Kallappa, you'll have to wait because I have to take a short break right now. Like we mentioned earlier in the program, it's not just about vehicular traffic in Delhi. It is also about crops being burnt in our neighboring states, especially in October, November. It's about factories in Ghaziabad. It's about factories in Panipat. It's also about the lack of awareness. There are no alerts. There is no concept of an alert as far as Delhi is concerned. And as we move towards the end of our show, a friend has just messaged me, sir, SMS. He says, look up at the sky. There's a cloud of smoke moving towards Delhi. If that's not an indication that we need to move and move fast, I don't know what is. I hope we'll take some lessons from today. Vimlendu Jha, RP Singh, Saurabh Bhardwaj, Brajesh Kallappa. That's all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining us. That was A Nation at 9 and I am Athar Khan. Good night.